I think what was interesting about Atlantic City's development that was different from so many other resorts is that Atlantic City had kind of a split personality. It really tried to pretend it was something for everyone. It was also a bit naughty. I mean, people could get away from home in Atlantic City, let their hair down, so to speak. And so gambling certainly cropped up in early years in Atlantic City, long before the casinos were here. And so did all the other vices. Alcohol was very prevalent here during Prohibition, and certainly prostitution had a very strong place in Atlantic City. So it was a place where people could be a bit sinful and yet very proper. As Norman mentioned, the early families were Quakers, so they always had this decorum that Atlantic City was a wholesome place. It was just sunshine and ozone and fresh air and salt water, but there was also a seedier side. So Atlantic City just about appealed to everybody. It was very cosmopolitan.
By the turn of the century, Atlantic City had gained the reputation as America's playground. The Steel Pier and $1 Million Pier had become two of the biggest entertainment venues in the United States. After successful Coney Island entrepreneur George C. Tilliou purchased the original Auditorium Pier in 1908, he renamed it Steeplechase, adding amusement rides like the Human Roulette Wheel, Barrel of Love, and the Whirlpool. It would become famous for hosting top-line musical acts, an outdoor bandstand, and a giant advertisement for Chesterfield cigarettes, the largest electric sign in the world. The Loop-the-Loop roller coaster was constructed on John L. Young's $1 Million Pier in 1901. Beginning in 1906, the pier featured first-class entertainment and vaudeville acts, going on to host big band concerts, dance marathons, and amateur variety shows. Known as the Showplace of the nation from the 1920s to the 1960s, Steel Pier hosted world-renowned entertainers and performers. From John Philip Sousa and his band, to Frank Sinatra, to Diana Ross and the Supremes. In 1929, the world-famous Diving Horse became a major attraction at the pier, entertaining visitors for the next 40 years. Sonora Carver, the original rider, insisted that the horses loved their jumps and that one was never injured. Introduced in 1876 and originally intended for the handicapped, by 1888, the Boardwalk rolling chair had become one of the most popular attractions in Atlantic City. Rented out for pleasure and propelled by pushers, by 1899 they were a boardwalk landmark. Many constructed of basketwork, complete with lace awnings or umbrellas for shade. The first souvenir postcards at the shore or in the entire United States are claimed to have been introduced at Atlantic City in 1895. In August of 1906, a total of 1.5 million cards were sent from vacationers to friends and family back home, all with the postmark Atlantic City. By the 1920s, Atlantic City's Easter Parade was attracting over 200,000 participants. Ladies in their festive hats and bonnets, and men in their derbies, all eager to promenade in their Sunday best. In the early 1900s, black beachgoers were segregated to Missouri Avenue Beach, just south of Million Dollar Pier, a stretch they would nickname Chicken Bone Beach. Prior to being divided, blacks and whites had shared all of Atlantic City's shorefront. From the 1930s to the 1960s, nightclubs on Kentucky Avenue attracted some of the biggest and most talented stars from the world of jazz. Names like Billie Holiday and Louis Armstrong. Headliners and showgirls from Club Harlem would come down to Chicken Bone Beach, hobnobbing with vacationers and local residents. Celebrities like Sammy Davis Jr. and the Mills Brothers were among the regulars. It would not be until 1964 that Atlantic City's beaches would finally become desegregated. In an effort to prolong the summer tourist season, and inspired by the Ziegfeld Follies, in 1921, Atlantic City hosted a national beauty pageant. The very first Miss America, Margaret Gorman, was crowned on September 7th. Contestants were judged on their good looks and beauty, nothing more. As the pageant's popularity increased, a young lady's qualifications grew to include charm, talent, and poise. Convention Hall would go on to host every pageant from 1929 to 2006. Miss America and Atlantic City would become forever united. During one sunny day in 1929, on the city's boardwalk, Sam Foster sold his first pair of sunglasses. Soon afterward, Foster Grant sunglasses were a nationwide fashion trend and movie star chic. In 1933, Parker Brothers introduced a new version of the landlord's game. called Monopoly. It was a board game that centered around the town's real estate. Players moved around the board, buying and selling properties like Boardwalk and Park Place, collecting rent from their opponents, forcing them into bankruptcy, and ultimately gaining complete control of Atlantic City. From 1919 to 1933, the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages in the United States was prohibited. Taking exception to those rules was Atlantic City. Gaining fame as America's playground, gambling clubs and prostitution rings operated without interference from the law, and illegal booze flowed like water. This was all achieved thanks to political boss and racketeer Enoch "Nucky" Johnson. Along with corrupt Atlantic City officials, he ensured that anti-liquor laws went unenforced. From a suite of rooms on the 9th floor of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, Johnson operated his empire, hosting lavish parties while meeting with organized crime figures like Lucky Luciano, Dutch Schultz, and Al Capone. Nucky would say of Atlantic City, "We have whiskey, wine, women, song, and slot machines. I won't deny it, and I won't apologize for it." The repeal of Prohibition in 1933 would spell the beginning of the end for this golden age in Atlantic City. Automobiles now made it possible to take day trips to the shore. Visitors that had once come by train and stayed a week were now coming and going. Older resorts like Atlantic City, Long Branch, and Cape May began to see a decline in tourism. People were discovering more popular vacation destinations, and the city had fell into a state of urban decay and blight. It would take 43 years until 1976 for Atlantic City to regain its fame and greatness again.